Hello and welcome to our weekly Power Lounge. This is your place to hear authentic conversations from women in digital who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughan and I am the owner and chief empowerment officer of Together Digital, a diverse and collaborative community of women who work in digital and choose to share their knowledge, power, and connections. You can learn more about us at www.togetherindigital.com. And this week I'm excited to introduce all of you and connect all of you with Hitha Palepu. She is a consummate multi-hyphenate. I love that. That's like a great opening line to any bio. She is an entrepreneur, investor, author, and speaker. Hitha is the CEO of Vaughan Pharmaceuticals, whose lead products was acquired by Hylos. Did I say that right? Pharmaceuticals? Hyloris. Ooh, Hyloris Pharmaceuticals. She is the author of How to Pack, Travel Smart for Any Trip, which was published in 2017. Her recent book, what we're talking about a little bit today, is We Are Speaking. The Life Lessons of Kamala Harris connects illuminating stories from Harris's unique biography with tactical advice on the importance of being assertive and true to yourself in your personal and work life, which is exactly why you're here to talk with us today, Hitha. This is such a big aspect of what we try to strive to help women do at Together Digital. Hitha's passion for the news and politics is captured in hashtag 5SmartReads, a Webby honored news curation that reaches over 82,000 accounts. Her Instagram content uplifts and informs her community of over 57,000 followers. She is a sought after speaker on the topic of entrepreneurship, investment, parent work juggle. We've been discussing that already before as we were getting ready, and on diversity and inclusion. Hitha's 2022 speaking engagements include serving as an MC and a moderator of three Thread account summits hosted for Taco Bell executives and franchisees, delivering a keynote address at WN North's 2022 summit and speaking on the closing keynote panel for Female Founders Collective Summit. You know how to be heard, Hitha.
I get so awkward every time that bio is like introduced and I have to hear it. And I'm just like, ugh.
I've never met anyone who has it. And if they don't, I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel about you. But at the same time, I also very much encourage people to, feel proud of what you've done. That's all you, that's all accomplishments. Those are all things to be proud of. So I'm really glad that you're here with us today, Hitha, to talk about creating ways in which frameworks in which to be heard, and then also obviously discussing your amazing book, which I got my copy of early last week, and I've loved just kind of reading through the different perspectives and stories that you have brought together to help women figure out how they can work to be seen and heard.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. We're here with our live audience. So we're going to take questions from you all at the end, but feel free to drop in the chat where you're listening from. And if you have a question as we're discussing, drop that in as well. Like, we will definitely get to it. So, I commented right away on your opening bio line of being a consummate multi-hyphenate. And it really reminded me of that TED Talk, Multi-Potentialites, which many of you have maybe heard of. Our members talk about it a lot because many of us do kind of fall into that category. The idea of a multi-potentialite is that a person can have many different interests and create different pursuits in life. They have no one true calling. In the way specialists do, and being a multi-potentialite is kind of like in certain folks' destiny. We have many paths and we can pursue all of them either sequentially or simultaneously, which is maybe counter to our current professional cultures and ideas about how our career paths go. Listen to last week's episode if you want to hear a whole lot more actually on that. Hitha, you are the epitome of a multi-potentialite. Yeah, you're a CEO of a pharmaceutical company, you're an author, you're a speaker. Had you heard of this term multi-potentialite before? And how do you relate to it?
Not until you told me about it, but
good.
But once I did, I was like, I feel very seen by this.
Yeah.
I think I coined the term multi-hyphenate for myself because there was no other way to encapsulate that I do more than one thing. And I honestly think all of us are multi-hyphenates. Mm-hmm. And it is a uniquely American ideology that we define people by their jobs, mm-hmm. their titles, yes. the companies they work at, their comp, which has been a topic on my Instagram the past couple days. But we are so much more than just one sliver of this. And so by embracing the title multi-hyphenate, not only does it help define what is a very unconventional career, but it helps define me the way I define myself, which is being more than just my job. I am the sum total of all the things I do, from being a mom and a wife and a friend to Taco Bell's biggest fan and an unabashed lover of romance novels and a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan. So that is who I am, and that is how I define myself. So by introducing myself as a multi-hyphenate, I get to preemptively do that at the get-go before letting someone put me in a box.
Right. And doesn't that just like deepen the understanding of who you are, Hitha? You name those few other things and I'm like, oh, I have such a better sense of who you are as a human being, you know, because that's what we are as human beings. Yeah, I love that. So way to embrace the help, the multi hyphenate / multi-potentialite. If you guys haven't checked out that TED Talk, check it out. Julie was super quick and awesome and popped it into the chat for our live listeners. So it's a great talk. And I think it does, like you said, do a lot. And I think why it is so popular probably here stateside is when you meet somebody for the first time and you're just making small talk, it's one of the first questions you ask. What do you do for a living? You know, I think living overseas was the first time I realized that was a very American thing to do.
I've actually tried to just push away from that narrative and just be like, what's one great book or show you've recently consumed that you really enjoyed? Or what's one random thing you got into in the pandemic that brought you joy during those really long, hard days stuck at home? And I am so, you learn so much about people in those questions. And when I actually hosted a dinner earlier this year, that was the question that we went around. And I myself found so many great recommendations from it. One woman had said, I really got into Formula One during the pandemic because of the Netflix show Drive to Survive. It's basically selling sunset, but cars. And I was like, hold up. That is the best description. And now I'm hooked. And now all I want to do is talk about Formula One with people. And it's very annoying to a lot of people in my life who just don't care.
Right. They need to get into it. I have heard the same. I go to a local coffee shop here in town to work once a week just to kind of have the ambient noise and people around. And yes, I hear a lot of, like, especially one of the guys that baristas behind the counter, him and a few of the other customers, they just catch up on it every Monday. And I always think, I'm like, okay, there's something here that I need to be checking out because clearly there's a lot of conversation around it. And like you said, I think it just opens up doors and opportunities for you to learn and grow. And then again, connect more as human beings. Leaves a much better impression as well. Awesome. So your book, We Are Speaking, there's so many reasons why I loved it and appreciated it. I think one of the things that struck me at the very beginning, before I even cracked the book open, was that, you know, within our Together Digital community, we very much try to advocate for women collaborating versus competing, and the learning from and being inspired by one another versus comparing. Which is, again, like I said, something that I loved about the book. And this book in particular, for those of you who do get it and do read it or have read it, you'll know that it's more than just, you know, Kamala's life lessons and stories. You've brought in and introduced a whole group of women to sort of bring this topic and idea together. So what about, before we get to the rest of those, what about Kamala unlocked this idea and this vision for you?
So, you know, I joke that I've been writing this book for a very long time, like in the early pages of the book, where when I was just beginning my pharmaceutical career, which, let's just be very forthcoming, I work in the industry largely because of my father. It's not only because I enjoy working with him, but he gave me my first opportunity in industry and first put me in a role that I may not have been perfectly qualified for, but really worked my way and earned it. So it was a time where I was traveling almost every single week. I worked with all older men and mostly white men. I was still learning who I was and didn't have very many role models of senior level women who showed up and owned their space and owned their spot at the table with confidence and clarity. And so one day I was on some business trip, had CNN on in the background, was catching up on email, and I see this woman who looks like she could be like my cousin or a family member walk across the stage with such strength and confidence, starts talking about how she had negotiated a record settlement for California homeowners as part of the mortgage foreclosure crisis, which was one of my nerdy obsessions at the time.
Uh-huh.
And the Chiron said, Attorney General Kamala Harris. And I was like, that's Kamala Harris? She's not like some old auntie? Like, what is going on? So I went in and Googled, stalked her, and really started, the more I learned about her, cultivated this little digital book of Kamalaisms, that how she showed up. And it wasn't as if I started just wearing my hair in a sleek blowout and pantsuits and pearls.
Right.
And was like, I'm going to go be a lawyer. But it really was more, she modeled how to find what works for me and fully go all in. But one really powerful Kamalaism is never go it alone. And you might be the first, don't be the last. And the more I studied her and studied her career, that was something that was very powerful for me, that I have worked really hard to model and emulate and do in my various businesses as well. So when I got the opportunity to write this book, right after the election had been called, I was like, this is my dream book. And I kind of have been writing this book. So when I said, how long do I have to write it? They're like, how's 2 months? I was like, do I get 4? And they're like, how's 2.5? And I was like, I get 3. How's 2.5? So I was started negotiating the deal. We were in diligence with Hyloris at the time. So if I wasn't hopping on a conference call to like walk them through some part of development or writing, I was like barely surviving. So I got to shout out my husband, who really just completely handled everything on the home front, as well as my parents and my in-laws, my amazing caregivers, who just made it so I could hunker down and write and work during that stretch, and when the book came out as well. So I am very lucky. And while it is my name on the book, it really was this incredibly collaborative group effort, both with my teams helping me write the book and research and handle all the tactical stuff with interviews, and my team at home who gave me the space to sit and write.
Yeah. I mean, because you kind of had started, like you said, that digital book. How many of us have, how many of you listening have little things that you nerd out on, that you're collecting, thoughts, ideas, quotes? Like, how could that not maybe turn into something like a book someday? Since you touched on it, and the fact that you are clearly a very busy person and a working mom on top of that, you obviously had all the time in the world, like, not 2.5 months to write this book. How in the hell did you do that? What was the process like for you?
I mean, thank goodness I have a history degree, because the mechanics of research, outlining, writing, interviewing, I knew how to approach a project like that. I wasn't terribly overwhelmed. I also say, after the first call with the publisher and, they said, yeah, we want you to do it. And my agent started working on the contract. They asked for a high level outline. And within 2 days, they got the outline as well as the first half of chapter 1, which I had written like at Thanksgiving at my parents' house, like sitting on my bed with funny. I think Ro was on his iPad watching something. And my husband had like taken Rocky out for multiple walks around like the block, and it flowed. So one, I'm very grateful for having what my South Asian parents may not have viewed as a useful degree, but it was extremely useful in this process. And it really did flow in a way that nothing else I've ever written has ever felt just that. It was a lot of work, but I was able to jump into writing mode or research mode very quickly. I was able to jump from different modes in the writing process pretty seamlessly. That's great. Somehow the stamina of just writing for hours a day, I was able to keep up with. So I honestly was so thrilled to have the opportunity to write this and been so thrilled with comments like yours of people who it really resonated with. That's the whole point. And the title is very intentional because obviously that moment from the vice presidential debate where she goes, "I'm speaking," was so powerful because almost anyone who's ever been othered could empathize with that. We've
Yes.
all been in that space. But truly, flipping it on to we're speaking, it goes into one, her leadership philosophy of I'm going to bring more people at the table who have traditionally, whose perspectives have not been represented. And it's a kind of a new notion of power. We've usually viewed power as this very finite, limited thing that can
Right.
only be in the hands of a few.
Yep.
Motherhood and studying women leaders has taught me power is really infinite. It's a lot like love. Your heart doesn't divide when you have a second child, it doubles in size. And I view power very much in the same way. Whereas the more people that have it and the more people who can help develop what is the next step for the greater good, the better it is for everyone. And so this book and this title really does challenge a lot of old narratives and notions that most of us have kind of just accepted as truth, and forces us to think about, what is my truth? What are my values? What am I aligned to? And then how do I live in accordance with these values, and to think about how do I be more inclusive and equitable in everything I do.
I love that. I was just jotting down a paraphrase of what you said. Power is a lot like love. It is infinite and not for the few, but for the many. I just love it. It is. It's a different view than what we've been taught and told. And, again, I love that you're just shattering those conventional ideas, because I find that more empowering than just saying, "Look, I did it. You can too," kind of a thing.
I really don't believe in providing advice that there's no such thing as one size fits all. But I
Right.
think in offering frameworks and systems that people can adapt for themselves, because
Yes.
all of our lives are so different. That's where I think the value comes in books and in the sort of personal development work that we talk about. One of my good friends, Eve Rodsky, her book Fair Play is very much the same, in that
Yep.
she's giving you a framework and she's giving you some tools, but it's up to you to adapt it for yourself, and not for her to tell you, these are the cards you should hold, these are the cards your partner should hold, whatever. She's like,
Right.
here are cards
Yeah.
that encompass the majority of the housework tasks. It is up for you to decide how you're going to divide them. And I find that so powerful.
Agree. Because at the end of the day, systems are the problem, but also the solution. Was she part of the Fair Play documentary? Did they do a documentary, or is there a documentary maybe on the same topic?
Yeah, she's got the documentary, the book, the
Okay.
cards. She's
Yeah.
amazing. She has a policy institute now.
That's awesome.
And, when she talks about this country and much of the world is built on the backs of the unpaid labor of women. And if we put a dollar amount to it, like we could not
Oh
afford
my
it.
gosh, no.
And to me, there's so many overlapping parallels, like from that work and this book, because why is it power structures have been the way it is because for the people who traditionally had power, they can't fathom a life that requires them to maybe contend, what do I do to contribute within the home?
Yeah.
Or maternity leave or parental leave is just too expensive. Caregiving is not value. Progress takes time, but I am seeing progress made every single day. And that's what I have to focus on to keep me hopeful and to keep me energized for this long fight ahead.
Yeah, agree. You have to protect your energy for sure. Yeah, and it's so funny that you brought that up, because Fair Play, we're talking about doing a screening with members and a discussion on it. So if you have a chance, I'd love an intro. Maybe we can bring her on and have her as a guest, because we have a working moms peer group that meets once a month, Together Digital, and we talk about anything and everything. And many of you who have listened to podcasts in the past know I was a member before I came into the role I'm in now, and ownership. And that was a big thing for me, was once I became a working mom, I felt so isolated because there were no other working moms on my team, in my department. And so just kind of those new challenges, I was like, I just want to know how the hell I'm supposed to do all this, or, just know that I'm not alone. And so I think that's one step, but another is obviously breaking down those barriers and kind of preconceived notions of what a woman's role is in the house and home and things like that. So yes, absolutely a topic we are always wanting to talk about. And to my next question, whether it is a baby, speaking of families, whether it's a baby or a book, it takes a village. I wanted to know a little bit more, and if you could share with the listeners a little bit more outside of just Kamala's life lessons, and who else did you work with on the book that they could look forward to reading more about?
So I have an incredible group of women who are friends and people I badgered on the internet into becoming my friends to contribute essays when I thought they really were the ones to embody a certain Kamalaism. So you'll hear from two of my best friends who I met the first day at Cisco orientation, Samira Panna and Esther Ayurende, whose essays actually are the first and the last in the book, who I think really embody your name and your multitudes are your superpower and not being the last. And these are two women who are still senior leaders in huge tech companies, which is still, and really pushing the narrative of what it looks like to be a leader in very traditional organizations. So they blow me away. Mandana Dayani, who's the creator of I Am a Voter and the president of Archwell, she contributed an essay about do something about it and don't do it half-assed. To me, she is the epitome of that. My friend Komal Minhas, she's someone who has battled two forms of rare diseases, one cancer, one autoimmune, while also screening this incredible documentary that she created at the White House and interviewed Michelle Obama. And what she has learned about cultivating resilience is very, very powerful and very tactical. And so her story is one of my favorites. Rakia Reynolds, who is just a rock star communications strategist. She runs Sky Blue Media, which represents Glennon Doyle and Serena Williams and Lovey. She has the most powerful style, but talks about it with such intent and intentionality that her story on how to show up. And, she's a Black woman who typically a lot of things about being a Black woman in this white dominant society is just constantly questioned in a way a white man would never be. So for her to talk about owning your style and owning it on your terms is so powerful. So I'm really honored to have these stories from so many remarkable women who I'm grateful to call friends. And again, that's part of the we. It's not just about, I talk a lot about privilege and that I have a lot of it. And for me to try to talk about some of these stories, it just wouldn't be authentic coming from my perspective. So to be able to share the pages of the book with these incredible women is a huge honor. But then who helped me make this book happen? It is a village. It was my editorial lead, Tabor, who not only was running 5 Smart Reads while I was writing, but she was handling so much of the research, the bibliography preparation, getting release forms signed, all of that. And I could not have written this book without Tabor, without my manager, Austin, who just kept the things going with content partnerships, my Sky Blue Media team, who helped with the launch and the marketing of the book, as well as a phenomenal team from Little Brown Spark. Marissa, my editor, was a dream to work with. And I literally am like, can we write another book together?
Oh,
I
nice.
love you. The PR team at Little Brown Spark was amazing. And then Fanta Diallo, who was Marissa's editorial assistant, someone I chatted with a lot, almost on a near daily basis, really kept things going. And then lastly, the illustrator of the cover, Tracy Chang, is just so phenomenally talented and so grateful for her. And within the pages, there are some illustrations as well. And that was Kelly Lasseray, who worked on me with How to Pack. And it was so wonderful to be able to work with her again. So it is a very big village who helped create this book and make it a reality.
I love it. Well, kudos to that whole team of people, because and again, it's just a reason why I loved the idea of the book and the execution of the book and listening to other interviews, and the story of the book is because I think it just models that behavior of that success is never achieved alone. You need others. We need each other. So when it comes to trying to accomplish these big things, big goals, big ideas, I don't know why we have this preconceived notion that we have to do it alone, but you don't. Find me somebody who did. Find me somebody who did. That's so awesome. There was something else I was going to say too, but I think I just got so busy listening, I forgot to write it down.
The acknowledgement section of the book is like a pretty long section, but it's true. I mean, there are
reading those.
So many people without it. This was not a solo endeavor, even though it's my name on the cover. This really was, it took a village, it takes a team, and I have the best team, and I'm so grateful for them.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. All right. So the next question was going to be, we talk about you've referenced the Kamala-isms. One of the ones I picked to elaborate on, maybe we'll elaborate on a couple, but the first one that grabbed my attention was eating no for breakfast. Can you enlighten the group on the Kamala-ism that is eating no for breakfast?
Yeah, this was a quote from an interview she gave, and it was when someone asked how she overcomes adversity, and she was like, there have been great many times in my career that I have been told it is not my time and it is not my turn. So to that, I respond to them, I eat no for breakfast, and it is a hearty breakfast. And no's and rejections and setbacks are some things we're all going to deal with constantly. But to reframe this as something to be conquered and consumed and to anticipate, and is a different flipping of how do you overcome rejection, but also so much of it. And that's kind of the part of the book that bridges professional and personal, which was intentional as well, is you can't handle setbacks and frustrating moments without having a really strong foundation internally. So, self-care has often been commoditized as bubble baths and cozy pajamas and those sort of the commercialism of it. But really what it comes down to is, how do I set myself up every single day to handle anything that could come my way? How do I create a really strong foundation within myself that when things don't go as planned, I have the mental, physical, and emotional capacity to regroup, pivot, and try something new. And that's where it is. She has like a pretty strict morning routine, which during the writing of this book, I very much emulated from like the Raisin Bran and tea with lemon and honey every morning, getting in that 30 minutes of cardio straight away. And now it's more morphed into a little bit more of a relaxed or longer routine with mother time, kid time, and wife time interspersed. But I think like if you can't show up feeling like you have taken care of yourself and you've made yourself a little bit of a priority every single day, it's going to be really hard to not just handle the things that you have to do, but also how do you make space for the things you actually want to do? So by making that the priority first, that really helps. And something I've created for myself to remind myself to fill my own cup is sort of this planning sheet that I fill out every day on we were talking about reusable notebooks and whatnot. So I do it in my Remarkable, but I'll drop a link to it in the chat. It's a helpful sheet to just remind me what workout am I doing? What podcast am I listening to? What music is going to get me in the mood to get working? What am I grateful for today? Who are people I want to send some love to? And then what do I need to get done today? The to-do list is at the very bottom, and that's very intentional because it should come with how am I taking care of myself and nurturing the physical, emotional, and mental parts of me first before doing kind of what is other people's agendas.
Yes. I love that. That's great advice. Yeah, we're so focused and kind of conditioned, I think, as women, especially with the influence of social media influencers and things like that, that it's like always perfection you're striving for, or this idea of self-care that's basically just not really caring for yourself. It's actually ignoring your own true needs and just following with the crowd, whatever looks like or sounds like self-care. So we talk about a lot of that as well. It's with Together Digital when we do our Goal Getters workshop, which we've got one coming up in September. Julie, if you want to grab the link and drop it in, we talk a lot about understanding like your passion, your purpose, but then also your time and how you're using it, and really making sure that you are giving time to your purpose and your passion so that you aren't overspending yourself and really not making headway. Because so many of us are like, oh, I'm just not fulfilled in my job. And what they're really saying is I'm not fulfilled in my life. And you don't have to be fulfilled in your life through your job. Your job can just be a job. You can find fulfillment in so many other ways. And then again, because your job is not infinite, but your life, this is it. So I love our goal getters for that, because the group continues to converse after and between each session to really kind of push to not hold ourselves to this idea of perfection. And then also, I think, eliminating this notion of success without struggle, talking about times in ways that you failed or struggled. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong, one, with acknowledging your privilege, and that's like something we all could do better, but definitely also just talking about the ways in which we felt set back or things we had to overcome. So, I know that the book and the opportunity, it felt so serendipitous, and the opportunity just kind of came, which is amazing. But I'm sure that there were still some things, mindsets, what have you, that you had to overcome to start writing this book, because we're going to get to more Kamalaisms here in a minute, but I wanted to make sure I got that question in. What were some things you were struggling with when you first sat down to start writing?
I mean, I had my own imposter syndrome to deal with quite a bit in this book. There were a lot of moments where I'm like, why me? Like, who am I to write this book? And then it really came back in terms of, two Kamalaisms of this book. It's like, focus on your North Star. And for me, my North Star has always been helping predominantly women save time and energy on the things they have to do, so they have more time and energy for the things they want to do. And that has certainly been the thesis of my old blog, Hitha on the Go. It is certainly, the thesis of 5 Smart Reads is we all need to be informed, but if you kind of go with traditional media or consuming all your news on social media, it kind of is designed to overwhelm or incite an emotional reaction to you that I also think is not healthy. So here is a way you can consume the news that's focused on underreported stories and underrepresented perspectives in a way that you could just get these 5 in, know what's happening, and you can go on with your life. So similarly, that's when I had to remind myself, you have been doing this work for a really long time, and this is what you care so deeply about. Of course, you're the right person to write this book. I also have the benefit of having incredible groups of friends who will send me the pep talk text if I need it. And having my friend Dara, and this advice is in the book, of this idea of borrowing confidence that other people have in you until you actually believe it yourself, is such a powerful tool. And the way to practice that is creating a hype file. So I have a folder in my phone called "You're Doing Great, Sweetie," because I am also like, reality TV is it's not guilty, it's just a pleasure.
Right.
And I think Kris Jenner is kind of a genius, so maybe a Kris Jenner book next. But one of the things is it's just screenshots of DMs and emails and texts and pictures of people giving me that praise. So when setbacks do happen, and Lord knows I got rejected over 500 times when pitching Roche and Pharma, either to investors or partners, I needed to remind myself that no doesn't define me, that no, just, it happened, but this is who I am, and this is how I stay connected with who I am. And when I don't believe it myself, going back into that hype file, rereading those messages, help me remind myself of, this is how the world sees me, and this is actually who I am.
Oh yeah, it's like I love all those little corny catchphrases. I'm a writer by trade. I'm not writing a book, but writer by trade. And any kind of catchy phrase, it's like, rejection is just redirection. I always love that, and fall back onto those little sayings. But I love the idea of a hype file. And I definitely have my list of ladies, including a lot of our members that are hype women. And we try to do the same for each other. That's wonderful advice. What is your, getting back to the Kamalaisms really quickly, what was your favorite? Did you have one? Is it hard to pick? I'm sure.
They're all of them. Truly, I mean, that's why there's 9 chapters in the book about him. But I do think the one I'm most focused on right now is "Don't be the last." And that's just because we are now seeing what happens when women are not in the room, particularly women with perspectives that don't fit the mold of what a woman should be in sort of the 50s antiquated terms. what happening at a
Yep.
macro level. And it
Okay.
is rights being stripped away
Yep.
from people. And
Yep.
so don't be the last has never felt more important or
Yeah.
tangible at the moment. And it is something that, you know, as I've built 5 Smart Reads, it was important that I don't do it alone and other people's perspectives are part of it. So I have the most incredible team of contributors. And I love it when it's a contributor day because I get to just sit and drink my coffee
Yep.
and read the reads and enjoy their wisdom and learning from their perspectives.
Mhm.
It comes with work. You know, in building my content business, I've definitely had a lot more flexibility in who I bring on and how I bring them on. In life sciences, it's a little harder, but since I've come on board, I've tried to bring on more women to join us. And I actually got to bring on my old head of operations from our last pharma company. And she is the best. Like, she truly is made my life so wonderful, like so much easier, helped me manage the business and run the business better. And, you know, and that's a very small example, but a really tangible example. And I also
Yeah.
think when it's don't be the last, you
Mhm.
have to create space for people to live their lives. So
Right.
in our businesses, we run remote first, asynchronous work. We have calls when we need to have calls. We communicate in a way that is easiest for each person to deliver updates as needed.
Mhm.
And the rest of the time, I don't care how you get your work done, as long as it gets
Right.
done when it needs to get done. And we're on top of deadlines and timelines and budgets. To me, it's go live your life. I do
Right.
not need to have that. And I think that's also a part of it. And not being the last, we can't be burning out. And so to
Yes.
give people the freedom to do their work in the best way for them
Mhm.
is, I wish it wasn't so uncommon.
Right.
I wish that we could reject the narrative that defines sort of American capitalistic how we work. Your work
Yep.
is your worth, all of this.
Mhm.
So, you know, don't be the last could be defined in so many different ways, but it also really does also kind of every single Kamalaism in the book really does. It's a puzzle that connects and builds a beautiful picture together. So you can certainly read this book and read a chapter based on I need this particular
Right
advice
now.
or
Right.
framework right now, but everything is meant to be built off each other and complement each other.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I snaps to everything you just said. I so many thoughts and alignments there from my perspective, and you know the things that we talk about often here as a group. And I think, you know, in that don't being the last, I think that's really why, you know, creating an inclusive, flexible workspace is just absolutely paramount. And it is really sad when we look back on history and realize with the loss of Ruth, like what consequentially came from that. That's the danger of just having one in the room. You know, it's not enough. It's not enough. Gosh, there were like 10 other things I was thinking. But again, I just love listening to you talk. So I'm just like not writing down my notes and I'm just listening and having like simultaneous thoughts. And then it's time for me to talk. And I'm like, I don't remember what the hell I was going to say. So next question is, I would love it if you could talk about the idea of finding your North Star and maybe sharing a little bit of what that framework of what finding your North Star looks like, because I do feel like that is something that a lot of our listeners are probably like looking at and going, I don't know what that is. And I don't even know where to start to find it.
Sure. I mean, and first of all, I wish I had like the sort of eloquence of Vice President Harris's North Star of for the people and everything she does is with the people in mind. Or my friend Tiffany Dufu's North Star, which is to positively transform the lives of girls and women at scale. And I'm like, I just want to make people, I want to save women time and energy.
That's great.
Which is
I'll
great.
sign up for that.
But I also think it is, don't focus on something that sounds like super eloquent, focus on what sounds authentic. But also
Yes.
instead of if the idea of a singular goal is overwhelming,
Mhm.
try a North constellation. So like at different times of the year, you're not going to see every single star in the sky, but they're still there. And some are going to be brighter than others. And that kind of represents our life. We're going to have different priorities at
Right.
different moments of our life. So think about what are a group of priorities that kind of encompass the multitudes of who you are and, you know, create a little picture. And one way I love to do this, and I'm a little woo-woo where I love like vision boarding. I love manifesting. I am that person, but I literally make a vision board twice a year on Canva. This is my current one.
Nice.
And I like print it out like from CVS and I put it in this frame and I look at it. And so it's something that this encompasses everything I want. Like I want to be a host on The View, so that the view set is there. I want to work more with Taco Bell. So I have a picture of me when I was at their headquarters. I want like a house with a pool in a beach town. So there's a picture of that.
Yeah.
But then there's also the words that matter to me, create and connect and speak, but also rest, because I really ran myself ragged both last quarter of last year when the book came out, and then the first half of this year with after January passed, where I just hunkered down and enjoyed that time at home. I was gone almost every single week for speaking or work opportunities. So it was a nonstop sprint. And I have to remind myself, you do not need to earn your rest. You don't need to earn your rest.
Did you all hear that? Are you listening?
And to prioritize it. So I'm really happy that June was a little nutty, but July and August is extremely low key. And that was intentional. It is, I say yes to the plans that I really want to say yes to, but I also put boundaries. And if there's more than 3 things happening in a week, I have to say no, because I just need to give myself that space to recharge. I need to have the nights where I fall asleep in my kid's bed after reading him a book and, you know, have those moments, or I'm watching a full movie at home because we got started right after the kids went down at 7:30 and I'm still getting my 7.5 hours of sleep. So rest is kind of a priority for me. And in the, whatever comes from this rest and ideas I get are the ones I meant to have. So it's kind of, this has been a fun moment of relearning who I am and what I actually want in this next chapter.
I love that. Yes. I love the idea of a Canva vision board. We've done vision boards before, but it's always with all the magazines, which I don't subscribe to many or have many. So I'm always like, oh, I'm limited to what's here. With Canva, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. I like it.
So if even the idea of collecting the images online is overwhelming, I would say just write a list, like free write a journal like page where it's, this is like 10 years for me, 10 years in the future is writing a letter to present day me about what her life is like.
Yeah.
And getting very specific about where she is, what she's doing, what the kids are up to, what not. Or it could just be, you have a conversation with yourself. Again, I am very woo and I do this a lot.
Yeah.
And I'll actually do this like throwing on a voice memo or putting on rev so it can be transcribed. And I interview myself and it's like, how are you feeling today? This is how I'm feeling. What do you want to do today? Well, this is what I want to do. How do you want to feel? And then you kind of, once you get comfortable with that self-questioning, you then ask, what do you want? And you could start small. It's like, what do you want to eat for lunch? Or what do you want to do this weekend? Or what is something you want, an experience you want to have this month, like a show you've been meaning to see or a restaurant you've been meaning to try. And that primes you to start getting ready to answer the big questions. And from that, like journaling, audio, whatnot, you could start gathering and saving the pictures on your phone of this is what represents that. And then you could maybe throw it all together on Canva and arrange it. And
because you'll start to see trends. You'll start to see trends and themes and topics that you're like, oh yeah, I have kind of followed a pattern. Because I think what you're talking about too, one, it's not woo. I do all of it too. It's wise. It's wise because I think it's ways in which you are unearthing, you are knowing. And that's just something, again, and you probably listen to Glennon Doyle at her podcast, We Could Do Hard Things, but you know, I love how she talks about understanding and knowing yourself and what that takes. And I think that journey for everybody looks a little different. I think for her, she said it was sitting in her closet for 7 minutes a day for like a year or something like that. I think for me, it's been getting back out and into nature and just appreciating how I feel when I'm outdoors again. You know, and so, you know, taking on like meditation and journaling and things like that. I just think those are all really smart ways in which we can start to unlock that inner knowing. And I think sometimes it gets thrown into woo because again, it's things that I hear more women doing than not. So I think it just diminishes a bit of like our approach to things because it's not the atypical traditional approach. You know, you just kind of go in and you know what you're supposed to be and you know who you are and you know what you're going to do and you just go in and do it.
I have a love for like witchy books, like
Yeah.
always have been, even pre Harry Potter. And
Uh-huh.
so big fan of Charmed back in the day, the
Oh
OG
yeah.
Charmed.
Oh
And
yeah.
so to me, when I say woo, it's
Yeah.
kind of embracing that like witchy sort of feminine energy, intuition. And so to me, it's a very powerful thing.
Yes.
And it's like, it's like, I feel bad for people who can't surrender into just
Yes.
listening to themselves and conversing with themselves. And once you unpack what it is you want, that's aligned with your love, your life, not what people think you should do.
Yes.
And putting together these vision boards and like writing down goals. For a very long time, one of my practices every morning was to write 3 things I wanted to make happen. And literally one of those goals was like license row 11, our lead product. And I wrote the terms that I wanted. And that is exactly the terms we got with this.
That's
team.
awesome. Yeah.
And so I think there's incredible power in repeatedly putting it out there, what it is you want, because that also signals to your brain, this is what I'm going to work on.
Yes.
And it all works together. So it's not that you just write it and forget it and go and don't do anything, but it primes your brain and it signals to your brain, this is what we're working on. So when you sit down to get to work, you have a focus and you have that goal, and the micro work actions are connected to a macro vision.
Yes. Yes. I think a lot, we've talked about that a bit too, is just this idea that doing isn't leading, and always doing, like just productivity isn't always the thing that makes you successful. Like you need to be practical with your time, and, productivity has a place. But at the end of the day, I love that advice. And I think that's a great exercise to kind of start considering. And like, when you're looking at your calendar, and we talk about this in the Goal Getters Lounge, even when you're looking at your calendar, how much of your time is really being spent on the things like rest and the things that you love and that you care about. And if you aren't doing things like having those written reminders or visual cues, it is so easy to let everybody else's problems and the rest of the world kind of fall onto your plate, and that becomes your to-do list.
Yeah, Linda, what I had said is when you write down exactly what it is you're trying to make into reality every single day, it primes your brain to focus on those micro actions that you're doing to serve this macro vision of what it is you want to accomplish.
That is great. That is awesome. All right, last question I have, and then we'll take some questions from the audience if you all have them. What piece of advice would you give for women that are looking for more ways to be seen and heard? It's a big question, I know.
It's a big question. People aren't mind readers. And so if you want to be seen and you want to be heard, it requires you to raise the metaphorical hand in whichever way it works for you, and to share your goals and share your dreams with others who are happy to help you make it happen. So when I was like, I want to start speaking more, I told friends and I told my peers and I told people I admired, and they would either say, hey, I'm actually putting together a small event. Would you like to come speak? And I go, absolutely. And I said yes to almost everything at the beginning. And I didn't ask for comp. Now it's also still a mixed bag. There are a lot of places where I go, the values are really aligned with my values. So if you don't have budget, that's okay. I'm happy to come speak. Make it known. And so to this day, I still like pitch myself or my team, because I have a wonderful team now and I'm very grateful for them and very, very privileged to have them. We could take it out there and we pitch. And I also don't take the no's personally. Like not every conference can say yes to everyone, but it is what it is. And to Brenda's question, since it's tangential to this, any advice on how to politely say no to unpaid speaking ops? My answer has been, I reserve a certain number of pro bono spots in my calendar every year. And sadly, all those slots are filled. So I'm going to have to politely decline at this time. But should you have budget, please let me know. And I would love to figure out how we can work together.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and great answer as well. Yeah, that's a great response. Like you said, I think it's your decision, yes and no, what is for you, where values are aligned and things like that. There's that opportunity. It is a balance of benefit. And I think as women too, we already know we get, underrepresented and underpaid. I remember I was talking to a guest a while ago who was at a conference, and this is like the best gift ever. The woman who was helping to coordinate on the stage that day pulled her aside because she'd just finished her keynote. There was a couple that day, and the gentleman that had gone before her kind of just fell flat. But she had had this really amazing electric talk. The audience received it really well. She came off stage. She was like, I feel like I'm on fire. And the woman who was coordinating it back in the stage pulled her aside and was just like, I want to tell you, one, that was absolutely amazing. Two, I also want to tell you, you got paid half of what the guy before you got paid. Ask for more next time. What an awesome gift. What an awesome gift. So yes, yes to kind of, again, creating and setting your boundaries, giving where you can, but knowing when not to be taken advantage of, because it's such a slippery slope to fall down, especially as you're building up your confidence and your abilities and your services to speak and provide those things. And Brenda's a member of ours. She's in Detroit and does an amazing job providing services for LinkedIn for businesses. And, I think, Brenda, you're so great at that. You do a fabulous job of making sure that you create those boundaries. She is incredibly helpful. She provides so much amazing, valuable content, but she understands and knows her value and holds her lines where she needs to. And I think that that's just phenomenal. That's a skill set all of us are equipped with. So thanks for the question, Brenda.
Yeah. Learning how to say no to things that don't feel properly aligned means you have that space and bandwidth to say that yes to the opportunities that are the right ones for you. So while it can be scary to say no because you have that feeling of, is this going to happen again? If this opportunity goes by, will I ever be asked again? And I had to relearn that. I had to really relearn that it is okay to say no when I don't feel aligned to something, because it means I'm creating space for the right opportunity to come my way and I'm in a position to say yes.
Yeah. I think a good tip we've had in the past too, that I've definitely come to use as someone who chronically has said yes in her life, is that time. Nobody deserves my immediate answer. So a lot of times I think we get asked about things. One of the best ways for me to kind of approach it, if in my gut and my heart is a no, but on my lips is an almost yes, I will say, let me get back to you on that. And I'll take about 24 hours or whatever I need to think it through. And then it gives me the time and the space to think about, does this align with my values? Is this going to create more space for me to do what I really want to be doing? Look at my vision board, look at my cues around me. And if it doesn't align, then it's a no. And now I can think through my response and be intentional about it and polite, all those things that we want to be, and not feel guilty and kind of just walk away and like forget about it, honestly. And it gets easier with time. All right, we have just a few minutes left, 2 minutes to be exact. I want to be true to everybody's time and yours as well, Hitha. This has been so amazing. Thank you. I feel like we could talk forever. Do anybody else listening, you want to come off of mute? Do you have questions, or do you want to drop them in the chat? Enter that awkward silence where we wait for questions and the courage for you to ask them. Don't be shy. Well, Julie did drop all of the links into the chat early on. Julie, can you share that link again that has all of the Hitha links, which I love that you did that. Again, saving women time and energy. Look at you. Living by your North Star. All right. Everybody's just saying how much they loved the interview and the conversation. So I'm glad that all of you found it helpful. Hope you take this Friday inspiration with you, and you definitely check out Hitha's book. We are speaking The Life Lessons of Kamala Harris. Hitha, it was great. It was so wonderful to just sit and chat with you and have this lovely audience with us. So take care, and thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, and everyone. It was so nice to meet you, and hope we can stay connected. Instagram is probably my better platform to reach out to me on versus LinkedIn. I'm not very good about checking my LinkedIn.
No worries. Good to know where we can find you. Awesome. All right. We will see you all hopefully next week for our next Power Lounge. Till then, take care. Bye, everybody. Bye.